All right, hey VC, I'm Jamie. Welcome back. We're back with another video. I'm back with Yes records I have added to the collection, along with a few CDs and a magazine for those of us still buying magazines on the newsstands or whatever. This is Time Magazine, a special edition, Grateful Dead Now, Then, Now, Forever, 60 Years, The Long, Strange, Astounding Trip. And so this is actually right up to date because this includes a look at Dead and Company, the offshoot of the Grateful Dead, and their residency at the Sphere in Las Vegas. So it's kind of a nice magazine overall. Nice to see that it's kind of fairly up to date, because sometimes those Rolling Stone ones, the special editions, they're good, but then they're kind of dated, whereas this one goes right up to looking at all the offshoots of the Grateful Dead and right up to the present day. It also, of course, takes a look at the studio albums, whatnot, typical, magazine style, but yeah, enjoyable, and it is available now on newsstands. Okay, a few CDs picked up at the thrift stores. I got this one. This is Aussie Osborne and the album Down to Earth. Not bad, not bad. We've also got Natalie McMaster and Blueprint. Natalie McMaster is an East Coast fiddle player, and she is a terrific performer, and again, very traditional sort of East Coast music, and so happy to get that one. And speaking of which, a band I have not heard of called Salty Dog. I'm assuming they are an East Coast band because they do a lot of the same style of music, traditional sort of Canadian East Coast music, but they also do a couple of covers of Stan Rogers songs, including Fogarty's Cove and the Mary Ellen Carter on that one. I did enjoy that. We've got that Icon series that was out, sort of best ofs for a lot of different artists. So this is Stevie Wonder Icon, and so this basically just looks at his Motown stuff, his early Motown stuff, but still enjoyable. The band Semisonic and Feeling Strangely Fine. Of course, Semisonic had the big hit Closing Time, which is a great song. And then we've got Jimmy Vaughan and Strange Pleasure. So some nice blues. Of course, Jimmy Vaughan, Stevie Ray Vaughan's brother. Okay, so those are a few CDs I picked up. Now I do have a fair stack of records. Let's get to it. Picked this up at my local thrift store, Value Village. Was very pleasantly pleased to see Michael Jackson's Thriller, and this looks like an early or original copy, because this has produced by Quincy Jones that doesn't include Michael Jackson as a co-producer, and I think they did that on later issues of the album. But this is the traditional gatefold with this, and it does contain the original sleeve and everything like that too, so happy to come across that one. Okay, and also in the same find at my thrift store, Value Village, picked up John Prine and Pink Cadillac. I never see John Prine records at the thrift store. And this is kind of a rockin' John Prine record where he's working with Sam Phillips along with Knox Phillips and Jerry Phillips of Sun Records fame. So it has that kind of feel to it. He does a Baby Let's Play House. Not a huge album for John Prine at the time, but certainly enjoyable. This one did not include the original sleeve, but thrilled to get that. Okay, other finds include, these are not thrift store finds or anything like that. The band Angel, this is their live album, Living Without a Net. And of course, Angel, as you well know, the way it's printed out like that, you can flip it up and still see that it's the band Angel. And they were on Casablanca Records, so they were label mates with Kiss. For this album, I think they were hoping for the success of Kiss Alive that just didn't come their way. Really nice cover of all the young dudes on here. I was surprised to see, and this does include the original Casablanca sleeves, but I was surprised because this album came out, I want to say in 1981 or 1980, something like that, and it still has the traditional way that they used to do the double albums, where it was side 1 and side 4 and then side 2 and 3. I thought by this time that had completely stopped, but apparently not. So yeah, it follows the old traditional way of doing sides. Okay, favorite band from Canada. This is the band Chillak, and this is Chillak Rocker Box. No big hits on this one. Chillak is a band that really kind of changed their music through the years. They started off kind of proggy folk almost, and then became quite a kind of a radio-friendly pop band. This is more indicative of their sound. This is a later album called Opus 10 with the hit What You Gonna Do. It features Bill Henderson on lead vocals. Chillak had a lot of radio hits. hits, but happy to pick up any and all. Chillak, and they did put out a lot of albums over the years. It was a band, Chillak was a band originally known as the Collectors, and this is kind of a favorite in the sort of psych pop world. This is their debut album, the Collectors, and this is with Bill Henderson, and these members would then go on to form Chillak. Kind of a nice psych pop album. One of those records that had always kind of eluded me, and happy to finally come across a copy. Okay, we got some nice blues going on here with Savoy Brown, and this is Boogie Brothers on London Records. A live album from Melanie. This is Melanie and the album Leftover Wine that features a studio track, Peace Will Come According to Plan, of course, with thoughts of Woodstock in the month of August. You know, you think of all the performers, including, of course, Melanie. And so this is a live album at Carnegie Hall, very sparsely recorded. I'm not thrilled with the recording of it. It's very, very quiet at times, and this is not a pristine copy. I picked this up at a local thrift store, Value Village. So I'm not sure exactly what I think of this, but it was interesting. I was not aware that this album had been released, and so I was happy to pick this up. But very sparsely recorded, shall we say. Okay, I picked this up just because it looked interesting at the thrift store Value Village. You can't pass up a cover like that. And again, Living Stereo is always going to be at least interesting or very well recorded records on the RCA Victor. That Living Stereo is a series that was available. So this is Music for Bang, Baroom, and Harp, Dick Scory, new percussion ensemble. It's maybe not as heavy percussion as one would have liked, but an interesting album nonetheless. And it even gives you a complete listing of the instruments used, a nice picture, shows you kind of the scope of the recording. Not in bad condition, but yeah, I was happy to pick that up. Okay, we have another great band. Man, I love Stone the Crows, and this is when Jimmy McCullough had joined the band, and Jimmy McCullough would later then go on to play with Paul McCartney and Wings. So again, if you're not familiar with this band, great blues rock, and especially the vocals of Maggie Bell. Fantastic, really enjoy that. Okay, another great live album. Did not have this until now. This is Dire Straits and their live album Alchemy, a double record set. Really a nice showcase for Dire Straits. Live album there. Okay, we got some 80s pop with Fine Young Cannibals and The Raw and The Cooked. Fine Young Cannibals, maybe not to everybody's taste. I enjoy Fine Young Cannibals. I mean, She Drives Me Crazy, Good Thing, were such big radio hits. So, you know, I'm a fan. Also a fan, of course, of Stevie Nicks. Did not have this one. Happy to come across Stevie Nicks and the album Rock a Little. And of course, Stevie Nicks has really been getting quite a reissue campaign on both CD and vinyl. Certainly a favorite Canadian artist is Mick Gilder, and this is his album Body Talk Music. Not a great record. I was rather disappointed with this one. This was a later release on Casablanca, well past his Roxy Roller or early solo hits. So yeah, not this a little disappointing. Trying a little too hard to kind of sound fresh and pop at the time rather than that glam rock style that he was noted for earlier. A pleasant surprise was this one, a later Jerry Rafferty album called Sleepwalking. And Jerry Rafferty, of course, was Steeler's Wheel and then Baker Street. And yeah, this was a good album. No big hits off it, but a great album, great sound. So worth picking up if you come across it. Okay, was happy to pick these Who albums up. These are the sort of the mid-70s issues described as deluxe, 2 complete albums. And as you can see, it features Quick One and Sellout on this one. And then this one has Magic Bus on Tour, which is not a live album, specifically a North American release, and The Who sings My Generation with that cover as well. So they're kind of, as you see, in the nice replicas of the back as well, and quite simply reissues of these albums. Kind of, I think they were fairly mid-priced reissues at the time in the mid-70s, when certainly The Who by the mid-70s were continuing to excel. And we've got a Who compilation I was not familiar with, Two's Missing. There's Who's Missing, which collects some rarities, and they continued it with this one, Two's Missing. I was not familiar with this one at all. but always nice to get any Who rarities into the collection. And of course, another John Entwistle album with a classic John Entwistle cover, Smash Your Head Against the Wall. Interesting with John Entwistle solo albums, some good and some not so good. This one's not too bad. But certainly varying qualities for John Entwistle solo albums. Okay, just quickly put this back into the sleeve. And we'll carry on. Speaking of awesome bass players, John Entwistle there. And then we segue over to the band Cream and their bassist, Jack Bruce, who did release a number of solo records over the years. This one is a really nice one, Harmony Row. Enjoyed this one. This one is a lot more sort of jazz influence, a lot more instrumental, a little bit more of a challenging listen. This is Jack Bruce and Things We Like that features John McLaughlin on this one. Okay, so there you go, a couple of Jack Bruce records. Picked up a couple of Count Basie records. How about that? How about Count Basie and Count Basie Swings and Joe Williams Sings on Verve? Very nice. And quite simply, the best of Count Basie on Roulette. Count Basie and his orchestra. Sort of big band jazz at its finest. Okay, here's the band Three. And this is the band Three and the Power of Three. In case you're not familiar with it, this is a sort of an Emerson, Lake and Palmer offshoot or extension, where on this one they didn't have Lake, so they had Robert Barry. So it's Emerson, Barry and Palmer, and I think they probably should have just called it that because it would have been a better title than simply Three. This is a disappointing album. Again, kind of trying too hard to be kind of current and relevant on this one. They do a bizarre cover of 8 Miles High where they actually change some of the lyrics on here. It overall, sadly, just doesn't quite work. Again, Emerson, Lake and Powell wasn't too bad, but this one just does not fly. But why they simply called it Three? And as I say, they should have just, quite frankly, gone with Emerson, Barry, and Palmer. Because interesting, they had Carl Palmer back in with this one. Okay, reissues continue. I was very happy to pick up a favorite Canadian artist, Amanda Marshall, and this is Tuesday's Child. This is her second album, originally only on CD, so this is now issued as a double album on pretty much black vinyl, but is it 180 gram? Maybe not, but thrilled to pick this up, and I saw Amanda Marshall in concert as she's back out on touring, so if you do get a chance, absolute powerhouse voice, Amanda Marshall. And it's a double album, but it is not gatefold, but simply the records inside here like that. And nice reproduction of the CD sleeves for this one. And quite simply on black vinyl. And like that. Okay, so yeah, really happy that that's been reissued. So that just leaves, I think, her third album is the only one that hasn't been issued on vinyl. So I'm sure that will be coming out. Okay, I picked this up at my local record shop. This is the Sensational Alex Harvey Band and Rock Drill. And I believe that's the title of this art display, which is a little different. And of course, always different is the Alex Harvey Band, just sort of the humor and the performance and the showcasing for that band. Interesting cover for this one. Picked this up at my local thrift store, Value Village. This is Bill Haley and his Comets, and this is on Decca Records, so it features all the great 50s hits like Rock Around the Clock. Obviously, this is kind of a later greatest hits, kind of appealing to the sort of the 60s go-go boots style. But yeah, like not bad at all. Again, on Decca Records, so it's not like a Pickwick release or something like that. Okay, Jan and Dean Live. Picked this up at a thrift store. This is live in person, command performance. Generally not bad, maybe not in the best of condition, as is often with Jan and Dean or some of the Ventures records that are often pretty beat up. But this one not too bad, and yeah, you don't see too many Jan and Dean Live albums, if it is in fact live, because a lot of times, certainly for records of this era, they were kind of pseudo live, if you will. Okay, this is the band C Train that put out a number of great albums, kind of sort of bluesy and sort of folk country at times, kind of an offshoot of Blues Project. Underwent certainly musical style changes, but this is C Train. And happy to find that one. Okay, a Steppenwolf Greatest Hits album I didn't have. This quite simply their Greatest Hits. And this pretty much has everything you need. Born to be Wild, Magic Carpet Ride, Hey Laddie Mama, that sort of thing. This cover not in the best of condition because actually it's held together by a piece of tape. But I can show you just briefly how it kind of folds out. I think I think everything is included, although, again, I picked this up at a thrift store, so everything might not be included, but it's just held together with some tape here, but there you have that, and then the record's sort of inside like that, so it's kind of a wild cover for Steppenwolf. You can see the tape there, so yeah, not certainly the cover not in the best of conditions. This is a Johnny Rivers reissue. This is Johnny Rivers Whiskey A Go-Go Revisited, and this is a reissue on Sunset, where on the Sunset budget reissues, this is how their presentation would be for various artists, as you can see sort of on the back there. And so, thank you, Mark, for your copy. So yeah, it's, again, part of the Johnny Rivers Whiskey A Go-Go series. And in fact, side 2 is a track called John Lee Hooker, which takes up the whole side. But it's classic Johnny Rivers R&B in concert, the Whiskey A Go-Go. Okay, how about the band, the Buckinghams? I think one of their last records for Columbia, if I'm not mistaken, In One Ear and Gone Tomorrow. Again, them trying to go a little bit more psych pop or, Baroque pop, that sort of thing. Of course, this, a great band in terms of that sort of blue-eyed soul for the Buckinghams, for sure. Okay, Tony Banks and soundtracks. Of course, Tony Banks, keyboardist with Genesis, and this is music from Quicksilver and then music from the film Lorca and the Outlaws. And the one track, Shortcut to Somewhere, features vocals from Fish from Marillion. I had no idea Tony Banks ever worked with Fish, and I can help but imagine. Can you imagine if Fish had replaced like Phil Collins with Genesis? What a fascinating direction that would have gone, but wishful thinking. And then the track Lion of Symmetry features vocals by Toya, Robert Fripp's wife Toya. Of course, you see the Robert and Toya, Sunday lunch videos all the time. But I had no idea Tony Banks worked with Toya as well. So absolutely fascinating. Okay, so there you go. Okay, how about the band, the Box Tops? Right on. And this is Dimensions. And of course, this one does have the album Soul Deep. Love that track. And of course, this band had band member Alex Chilton, who would later go on to form Big Star. Or sort of that blue-eyed soul, but again, sort of changing direction a little bit, not drastically, but a little bit with this record. Okay, how about the classic Chic? This is Chic and Say Chic with, of course, who am I thinking? Of course, Nile Rodgers, of course, the featured member, and of course on bass, Bernard Edwards. And this has got, it's got everything you need on this one with Le Freak and I Want Your Love. Fantastic. Really happy to pick this up. Classic on Atlantic. Okay, an interesting sort of Rick James compilation called Reflections. Was happy to pick this up, but it was just a unique sort of Rick James compilation that does include Super Freak, but kind of a nod to his sort of early days as well. And with this kind of textured cover there, Rick James. This is a reissue, and I'm not a big fan of Pickwick Records because, as I've stated here a few times, Pickwick is generally okay, but sometimes those budget issues would leave off songs on records for whatever reason for their reissues. But this one seems generally intact, other than some of the things they've changed around with the cover. This is a Pickwick reissue of The Kinks and Musselwell Hillbillies. So there you go. So, but then they've got sort of the track listing here. And then they've got sort of this on the back with this up in the corner. And then, so I think the original, as far as I was concerned, was a gatefold, or at least had a nice inner sleeve. This one does not have that, but it seems like the song listing is intact. So a reissue, this didn't cost too much money. So I thought, well, I can pick that one up. Okay, here is probably one of my most unique finds in a long time. I couldn't believe my luck coming across this one. If you're not familiar with it, this is Brian Eno and David Byrne of Talking Heads fame, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. This has been reissued a number of times, particularly on CD, but the original vinyl version is the only version where you can get all of the tracks listed. Throughout the years, they've had to take off some tracks because of copyright issues, and they've had some of those tracks put back on, but not all of the tracks. So this is the only one where all the tracks appear. And again, it's very Soundscope, Brian Eno, kind of David Byrne, but was thrilled to find this because this is certainly a very unique recording. So, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. Okay, just took a chance with this one. It was listed as proggy, so I thought I'll pick this one up at my local record store. This is Finch and Galleons of Passion. Not bad. I believe a Dutch kind of prog group on Rockburg Records. Other than that, I don't know much about it, but it is definitely certainly proggy in nature. Maybe not the best of covers, but there's the band there on the back. But not bad at all. Okay, Foghat album I didn't have until now, the classic Fool for the City, of course featuring the great title track of Foghat, great rock and blues band, and then picked up Foghat, and this is Girls to Chat and Boys to Bounce, which is also a pretty good album. This is on the Bearsville Records, and this was a little bit of a later, this 1981 Foghat release, but I'm telling you, still terrific. Okay, picked this up at my local record store. I did have a copy of this, but my copy was a thrift store copy years ago where the cover is kind of ripped, so this is certainly a nicer copy of Rainbow Rising Classic with Richie Blackmore and Ronnie James Dio, Cozy Powell on drums. Richie Blackmore leaving Deep Purple, so there you go. This was a nice find. How about the Rolling Stones and Out of Our Heads? And this is on Decca. And this is a UK release. And this is a stereo copy, but I'm not going to find UK issues for Rolling Stones too often. So very happy to come across that one. Of course, classic Stones on this one. So this is the UK configuration on that, when some of the earlier albums had different track listings. That was typical for the UK and then the US release on that. And then a very unique Stones compilation called Milestones. And I believe this is a German or a European release that is a very interesting sort of best of, not typical for something like that. I don't know if you can see all the tracks there, but yeah, Rolling Stones and Milestones. And I think this was one of those early compilations released without the consent of the band sort of thing, where Decca or Abco just felt they could release whatever they wanted sort of thing. And speaking of the Rolling Stones, pick this one up. Now, this is a reissue. This is not an original copy, but couldn't believe coming across the classic Brian Jones presents the Pipes of Pan at Yoyoka. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. This appears to be a Japanese reissue, but it's in very nice condition. And I will confess that when I first heard it, I was enjoying it. But this is one of those classics. I don't know what happened, but I suddenly had my stereo at 45 instead of 33 1/3. But this is all instrumental music of sort of world beat music, so I hadn't realized I was listening to it at the wrong speed. So interesting, whoever had this has the obi strip sort of on the inside like this with the nice gatefold. Of course, that's covering up some of the pictures here. So if I can slide this over without ripping off the obi strip here, if you'll bear with me. So yeah, just a few photos in there. And this was a sort of an idea of a Brian Jones project recording this group that would later actually finally play on a Rolling Stones album. They played on, I believe, Steel Wheels later, at least, these musicians. So, very interesting, not to everybody's taste in terms of the sort of world music sort of thing, but Brian Jones presents. So it was like, yes, I'm going to have to walk away with that one. Okay, we've got some Canadian reggae. I do like the band Messenger, a Canadian reggae band, and this actually is a promo copy, and this is Rock You High. They had just a really nice sound, Messenger, so yeah, if you come across their records, they are certainly enjoyable. Okay, I picked this up at a local thrift store. I didn't have this until now, the Partridge Family's Greatest Hits, and why not? There you go. Now, it's interesting, I think, for me, again, it has everything that you want in terms of all the hits, that sort of thing, but it's interesting that they had no problems listing all of the musicians and clearly stating that Partridge Family vocals only by Shirley Jones and David Cassidy. So it's interesting, even at this time, there wasn't any pretending that the family was playing the instruments. And of course, this features Hal Blaine on drums. You've got Tommy Tedesco, so it's the Wrecking Crew on, you know, every recording ever in the 60s and 70s. But it's interesting, you know, that's the full listing of the artists right here. Or the musicians playing, which is nice. Okay, it's amazing, a band like the Supremes, so many of these Motown bands, how much material they put out through the 60s, not only the singles, but then putting out albums, a lot of times themed albums, like a bit of Liverpool, where they're doing Beatles covers, or Jerry and the Pacemakers, that sort of thing. But it's amazing the amount, the volume that these Motown groups, and many groups, certainly in the 60s, put out. It's just incredible. And then would find time to tour and perform as well. And then we've got Diana Ross live. This is Diana Ross at Caesar's Palace. There you go. Okay, early Bob Seger one I did not have. This is Bob Seger and Beautiful Loser. I wish I could get more of the early Bob Seger, the Bob Seger system stuff, but I don't seem to come across that stuff too much. But yeah, happy to come across that. Of course, the title track, Beautiful Loser. This was another sort of thrift store find. This is, again, the album cover, not in very good condition at all, but it's Peter and Gordon and A World Without Love. Of course, Peter and Gordon rode the British invasion wave in the 60s, and this has A World Without Love, of course, the title track, which was a big hit. All right. This is a Cliff Richard album that I do have with a different cover. This is Cliff Richard, and We Don't Talk Anymore. This was originally issued, I believe, as the album Rock and Roll Juveniles. It's the same record, but this is the sort of the North American, I want to say, cover reissue, all the same track listings. This has We Don't Talk Anymore, and also the song Carrie, which would later be covered by a Canadian band called Cano or Cano. A great Cliff Richard late 70s album, but I don't really actually care for this cover reissue. I prefer the original cover on that one. This is the one that looks a little too 80s, and it's really kind of hard to read too with all the stuff going on there. Okay, reissue in terms of Pink Floyd Relics. Probably for many, this is the album cover that most of us actually remember. Pink Floyd Relics, a bizarre collection of antiques and curios. Of course, this is really spotlighting early Pink Floyd a la Syd Barrett years. But this is actually, yeah, the later reissue cover. The original had the Nick Mason incredible drawing on it, but that's often the one that many of us certainly remember, at least in North America. Happy to come across this one, The Clash and Black Market Clash. Because I don't come across too many Clash records on vinyl anymore. They seem to get scooped up, but it's really nice to come across this one. Again, on Epic from 1980. Very nice. Almost kind of like an EP. Okay, we have a couple of Mick Ronson albums. There you go. We got Mick Ronson and Ian Hunter together for this one. And this is the album... Oops, sorry. my curtain has shuffled. Sorry about that. My apologies for that. It's Ian Hunter, is it right? And so this is Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson and the album O-U-I Oughta. That's right. It's sort of an O-U-I Oughta. Not too bad. Sort of a, again, a sort of a Hunter, a Ronson reunion on that one, and a Mick Ronson solo album. And this is Play Don't Worry. Of course, Mick Ronson, amazing guitarist who also, of course, worked with Ian Hunter and David Bowie. Okay, this is a reissue. Arthur Connelly, Sweet Soul Music, great soul music on the Atco label, where they were putting out so many great soul records, R&B bands. Arthur Connelly, Sweet Soul Music. You can just hear it playing, you know, especially, well, do you love good music? Oh, fantastic. Okay, how about ELO? Did not have this one. This is Electric Light Orchestra, On the Third Day. This one has Mama Bell on this one. Of course, with Jeff Lynne and company. And Doobie's record I didn't have. I've always did like this one. This is one of the first big reunion records, the Doobie Brothers cycles, and I love the song "The Doctor." And of course, this is when the band reunited without Michael McDonald. But again, of course, the Doobie Brothers are still going strong. And yeah, the album cycles. Okay, another Renaissance album I did not have. This is Renaissance and Ashes Are Burning. Okay, again, that's wonderfully sort of folk rock with a slight bit of prog. And we've got Justin Hayward and Night Flight. Of course, Justin Hayward of the Moody Blues. And here he is working again with Jeff Wayne. And of course, Justin Hayward had worked with Jeff Wayne on the War of the Worlds. So it does have that kind of sound or that kind of feel to it. And of course, Justin Hayward, just incredibly, just beautiful vocals. Okay, of course, the classic, the absolute classic. I don't know, in terms of Lou Reed's best of, I think this is the one most of us remember, and of course in Canada on the Best Buy series, Walk on the Wild Side, best of Lou Reed. Terrific. Okay, and another terrific best of. This is Sly and the Family Stone and Greatest Hits. And I don't know why there's a big STP sticker on here from, I guess, the previous owner. But this is a nice Greatest Hits, and this is a gatefold edition on this one. So again, this features pretty much everything you're going to need on something like that. Oh, okay, and we've got also one more for you here. New Riders of the Purple Sage, speaking of the Grateful Dead, and of course with Jerry Garcia. Thrilled to pick up, I believe this was their first album that features Jerry Garcia, because he wasn't with the band all that much. Also Mickey Hart and Spencer Dryden on drums and vocals. Of course, they'll be releasing so many sort of country rock albums, so thrilled to get this copy. All right, and that's going to do it for this one. I do have more records, but maybe we'll kind of chop this up because this one's running long as it is. So again, hope everybody's doing well, and we'll chat again soon. Do take care. Bye-bye.